Hi folks, today I'm going to continue our Intro to D&D series and walk you through the process of creating a character. Once you find the group, get everybody together, have an idea of what campaign that your GM is running, you will need to create your character, and I'll talk you through the steps in this video. So the first thing that you should start with is a basic concept. What kind of character is it that you want to play? Usually when I'm thinking about this, I think about what are the characters that I enjoy in books or movies or TV that I'm really drawn to and would think that I would enjoy putting myself in that person's shoes. And then from there, I figure out how do I make that character. There are tons of different ways to start off with the basic idea, but however you go about it, come up with a basic concept because this will help inform a lot of your choices. Also, you could just kind of randomize it and decide, hey, I'm going to just make up a character, roll some dice, and let the dice decide. And that's actually what I did today as I'm walking you through. I just rolled some dice to figure out which race and class that I was going to create today. So first you need to choose a race. There are 9 base races in the Player's Handbook. Do check in with your GM to see, because some of those races are less common, so make sure that you are picking from races that fit the world that you will be playing in. Many of these races also have subclasses to them. I picked a gnome, so I'll get to pick between the 2 different gnome subclasses. And you can find additional races and sub-races in some of the other supplements. Tabaxi, Kenku, various additions to elves and gnomes and dwarves can be found in some of these other supplements. And again, always check in with your GM to see kind of what are the books that you should be drawing from, as well as what are the common races, so that you don't have something that doesn't fit in the world. We'll go over a breakdown of the specific races in a future video, but you should know each race does come with its own benefits. They have racial traits and special abilities and proficiencies based on the races. Some races also mesh very well with certain classes when you look at the proficiencies and racial abilities they provide, but if you don't want to min-max, if that's not your playstyle, if you're more interested in a storytelling or character-driven, don't worry about trying to mesh the perfect race and the perfect class. Make the character that you want to play. So after selecting my race, I go through and pick the sub-race, and then I also jot down on a piece of paper all of the racial benefits and racial traits that can go right. And the racial traits can go into the features and traits box. Jot all of those down so I know all of that and what special abilities that my race allows. Step 2 is choosing your class. There are 12 different classes in the Player's Handbook. We'll do a breakdown of specific classes in a future video, but for today's example, I'm going with Ranger, so I am making a Gnome Ranger. And essentially, your class is your vocation. So what kind of adventurer are you? Each class also provides different benefits, different class abilities and proficiencies. Now, make sure to write down your level. Typically, you start off at level 1, but check in with your GM. Sometimes different campaigns, you might start at 3rd level or 5th level, but ask your GM and they'll be able to tell you which level to start with. We will cover leveling up in a separate video, so we are just doing level 1 at this point. Your hit points and hit dice are also determined by your class, so make sure to roll these up and write them down. The next step is determining your ability scores. Now, you have probably already gotten some benefits to your ability scores from your race, but to get the base number, there are 2 common methods for getting this number. You can either rolling or using the standard array. So for rolling, you roll 4 6-sided dice and record the top 3 dice. You do this a total of 6 times and then distribute those numbers into the different abilities scores. For a standard array, you use the following numbers: 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. And once you put in your ability scores, you will then figure out your modifiers. The book has a breakdown of all of the numbers for the modifiers, and essentially it gives you a plus or a minus to your roll. So a high score is going to give you more points towards your roll, that you would roll the 20-sided die and then add your modifier to it. And if you have a really low score, you're actually going to subtract from that roll. And that's how you figure out how well your character is at doing all these different things. All right, now that we've gotten a lot of the math and kind of rules side of things down, we get to move over to a little bit more of character development and storytelling. And we move on to describing your character. So figuring out your character's age, what they look like, all of those details you can write in and go in as much depth as you want to. It is helpful to have the age and a brief character description at the very least. You will need to figure out what is your character's background. So what is it that they were doing before they started adventuring? And your background is also going to provide a couple of additional proficiency as well as some of your starting gear. You'll also figure out your alignment. So this is essentially your moral compass that will help guide your character's actions. And you'll also figure out what your character's ideals, bonds, and flaws are. And these just help lay the groundwork for role-playing and really fleshing out your character. The final step for creating your character is choosing your equipment. Based on your class and background, you'll get options for starting equipment. Do pay attention, especially with class, to see what weapons and equipment you're proficient with. You can also choose to purchase specific items using your starting gold. So you'll figure out your armor class. If you are wearing armor, the armor will let you know what armor class that is. And if you are not wearing armor, it is your character's AC armor class is 10 plus their dexterity modifier. Essentially, how well are they getting out of the way of a hit? But if you do have armor or shields, those will up your armor class. And you'll also choose weapons. Melee weapons rely on your strength modifier for attack and damage. If it says finesse property, that means you can use your dexterity instead. Ranged weapons use your dexterity for attacks and damage. And if a weapon has the thrown property, that means you can use the strength modifier instead. Essentially, like if you have an axe, you can use your strength to throw it rather than your dexterity. If you're playing a spellcaster, you will select your spells. We'll get into magic and spells in a future video, but each class will give you an idea of what your starting spells are. Last thing to make sure to fill in is your passive perception. This is 10 plus your perception modifier. So that should get you started in creating a character in 5th edition. If you've got any tips or tricks or questions, just leave them down below. And I'd love to hear from you. What is your favorite character that you've created and gotten to play? Let's chat a little bit more down in the comments below. I want to give a special thanks to all of our patrons over at patreon.com/rollforinitiative, especially Sean, Joan, Arvi, Lainey, and Bryce. If you're interested in becoming one of our patrons, you can head on over and check out our perks and help us make some videos and make some more intro to D&D stuff for you guys. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We make videos here every Tuesday and Thursday, but you can hit the bell if you want to be notified every time we post content. All right, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative. Bye!